Hello, good evening. Oh, maybe I put a mic closer. Like this one. Oops. Hello, good evening. You can hear me, okay? Be online? Yeah, okay. People online. Everybody's online today. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, good evening, and sorry for the late. For the how do you say that? Starting later. So sorry for that because we had some teaching event and we just finished half an hour ago. So yeah, that's why we this week and next week, right? So it's only this week and next week the change is there, and then after that it will be as normal, right? 6:30 UK time. Yeah. So the prayers we do a bit shorter to have enough time to go over a few pages of the text. So before we start, generate correct motivation to understand more about emptiness, of course. Yeah, so we're going to talk about cause and effect relationships and aspects of emptiness in that regard, emptiness of phenomena. And we need both, right? Emptiness of phenomena and emptiness of the self of a person in order to eliminate the obscurations, in particular the obscurations to omniscience. Yeah, so for the purpose of achieving Buddhahood in order to be of the greatest benefit for sentient beings in the full extent. So generate correct motivation for that purpose. And then imagine in front Sakyamuni Buddha, and then surrounded by the various lineages, right? Various deities. So imagine that in front, and then surround yourself countless beings undergoing the individual sufferings, and I think you lead them beyond samsaric suffering while you recite the prayers together with them, or you lead them in the prayers. Yeah. So I just do.
So we're doing shorter prayers today because we started a bit later. To the Founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha and knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from a Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the Founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from a Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the Founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. The indescribable, inconceivable, and inexpressible perfection of wisdom, unproduced, unceasing, the nature of space, object of a uniquely known transcendental wisdom, to the mother of the victorious ones of the three times I prostrate. Taya ta gate gate para samgati bodhi soha. Taya ta gate gate para samgati bodhi soha. Taya ta gate gate para samgati bodhi soha.
Sangye Judang Soni Sonamla Janjo Bado Dani Gyasoji Dagi Jinzo Gebe Sona Dola Penje Sangye Doba Sho Sangye Judang Soni Sona Janjo Bado Dani Gyasoji Dagi Jinzo Gebe Sona Dola Penje Sangye Doba Sho Sangye Judang Soni Sona Janjo Bado Dani Gyasoji Dagi Jushu Gebe Sona Dola Penche Sangye Doba Shona Chun Tu Kangi Tu Sin is Dao Dan Chi Bang Che Dao Chen Go Dam De La Cha Tsan Lo. Yeah, so yeah, I didn't prepare a quote today, so it's okay. Otherwise, it also takes time. Yeah. So we are in a section in the text that explains, as we went over the various aspects of the self of a person, right? Regarding the sevenfold reasoning of Chandakirti. Yeah. So then from there, it goes into the emptiness of phenomena. Yeah, because the chariot example, of course, you can also use it as the emptiness of phenomena, but it's mainly meant for the purpose of to realize the selflessness of the person, right? And we said before, if you read the various texts in the middle way philosophy, then the sevenfold reasoning of Chandakirti is the method to realize selflessness, right? So the methods by which you can realize selflessness, but you have to join the objective refutation with the first 5 reasonings, yeah, as we went over a few times before. If you don't do that, then it doesn't lead to realize emptiness. Yeah? So, for example, if you follower of the Svatantika school, yeah, the autonomy school, then you use that same logic or reasoning, but it will not produce the realization of emptiness, according to the Prasangika, right? Because they don't recognize the object of refutation or the Prasangika. Yeah, so that's very important to get a clear distinction between the object of refutation in the Svatantika school and the object of refutation in the Prasangika school. Yeah, so that's what in the Svatantika school, what is the illustration of the person is in the Prasangika school the object of refutation. Yeah, so that's because in the autonomy school, right, in the Svatantika school, they say there is no true existing self of the person. But if you ask what is then the person, then they put forward the consciousness, right, as we know. The mental consciousness, that is the illustration of the person, that's the person. Yeah. So that, according to the Prasangika, is the object of refutation, and well, the subtle one. Yeah, because there's no other school who can recognize that aspect, that consciousness, exists by their own characteristics or exists inherent. Yeah, that the other schools they all think that's the reality, but then the consequent school explains that it doesn't exist. Yeah, so that's what we put forward as the object of refutation for the Prasangika. Yeah, because there is no consciousness existing in and by itself, and there's no person that can be found. Yeah, the person is imputed by the mind, and all schools agree upon that, right? The person is an imputed phenomena, yeah, nominally imputed phenomena. But what you then ask the question, what is the person? And then we know the Svatantika and below they say the mental consciousness is the illustration of the person. That's the person. Yeah, and the mind only school, following scriptures, they say the Alaya Vijaya, or the mind basis of all, is the person, right? Yeah. So the Prasangika refutes both of those aspects, because you cannot find the Alaya Vijaya, or the mind basis of all, and you cannot find that mental consciousness. Yeah, if you look for it. Yeah, so the person is imputed, but if you look for the base of imputation, you cannot really find it. Yeah, so that's kind of a subtle kakya. And then most other schools, they either refute too much or they don't refute enough. Yeah, for example, the Svatantika school doesn't refute enough, right? Yeah, so that's Svatantika school and below, they don't refute enough. Yeah, so that's why they never realize the emptiness according to the Prasangika. Yeah. So, yeah, we went over the chariot sevenfold reasoning quite a bit previously. So now there's a section on cause and effect relationships. Yeah, that's very important. Why? Also, if you study Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom, then there's a lot of aspects related with cause and effect, right? Yeah. So that's why Chandrakirti is quite unique, because Arya Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom, as well as the other 5 scriptures on logic and reasoning to prove emptiness and dependent origination, is mainly based to refute the Svatantrika and the Vaibhasika schools, right? Because at that time, the midway school was degenerated, so Nagarjuna had to clarify things. Yeah. But then Chandrakirti kindly brought in the other schools as well. Yes, we saw previously the Mind-only school and the Svatantrika school, yeah, the autonomy school, to be refuted, right? So Chandrakirti is the person who clarifies those parts. So that's why in certain textbooks, in particular Sarah J was of course the best one, because I'm Sarah J, that's why. So that's what we always say, the monks of the monastery, they say that. Yeah. But the other ones will say the same thing. Yeah. So there it says that, but also we share this view with some other monasteries who have the same kind of interpretation. That Chandrakirti was actually the chariot, or how we say that? A chariot, we say? Yeah. Trailblazer, right? Trailblazer of the Prasangika. And Nagarjuna is the trailblazer of the Madhyamaka, yeah, the middle way. Yeah. So all those schools, they say no, Nagarjuna's intention was already Prasangika, right? Or Buddha Palita in that regard. Yeah. Anyway, that's not that important. So then it goes now into cause and effect relationships and the proof that things do not exist inherently, but in the nature of being dependent, right? In the nature of interdependence. So we quickly did verse 168, I think, last week, right? If a thing produces an effect, it's indeed a cause on that account. Yeah. So cause and effect, as we said before, they mutually in a mutual dependence. Yeah. So that's a unique aspect of Prasangika, where you say the cause depends on the effect. Yeah. Most schools, they say the effect depends on the cause, because if there's no cause, there's no effect. So the effect comes into being because there's a cause. Yeah. So that means that the effect depends on the cause. But in the Prasangika, we say the cause depends on the effect, because what you call an effect or result, that based on that you can call something a cause, right? So that's the mutual kind of dependence, you know. Yeah. So that verse we went over also at the end of last week. Yeah. So then you can ask the question: the chicken or the egg, or cause and effect? What came first? Yeah. So then you say, yeah, the cause, of course, but the cause is also an effect. Yeah. The cause is an effect of its previous moment, right? So yeah, you can actually not really find a beginning. Yeah, we cannot find a beginning in consciousness. We cannot find a beginning in matter. Yeah, of course, molecule structures, they changed, but you cannot find a beginning, right? If you look at a big bounce, yeah, in one particular part of the universe, then that was created by something else, right? So that's yeah, there is no beginning in the continuity of matter either. Yeah. So that gives us an interesting view to beginningless time. That if you look in the physical world, of course there was no beginning. It's clear. The science is very clear about that, right? There's no beginning. It's just a bit difficult for us to comprehend, but that's the reality. Yeah, there's no beginning, and there's no end. Of course, one universe or the planet or those things will, of course, disintegrate, and maybe one day meteorite comes in and the whole thing explodes or whatsoever, right? So that means that that's true, but the matter will continue, right? That will take all the aspects and yeah. So that means there's no beginning and no end, right? So I'm saying that the continuity of consciousness. Yeah. Yeah. So then verse 169. Yeah, there it says, if you say that the cause produces the effect through contacting it. So there's a view, yeah. That now this is, if the cause creates a result, how do they relate with each other? Yeah, that's a question. Yeah. If you say the cause exists inherent, the effect exists inherent, or they exist by their own characteristics, then according to Prasangika, there's no connection possible, right? So if there's no connection, then there's no cause and effect relationship there. So then certain schools, they say, they produce because there's contact between the two. Yeah, if you don't have contact, how do you have a continuity? Yeah, so that's a few questions you can ask, right? Yeah, if there's no contact in between moment 1 and 2, how can you have a continuity, right? If moment 1 is the cause and moment 2 is the effect, so is there contact between those two moments or not? Yeah, so this is, then you already see that's a philosophy of things existing by their own characteristics, or things existing inherent. Yeah, that you looking for something that is findable. Yeah, so that's and then this question comes, right? If you say there's no contact between the cause and the effect, how could you have a relationship between the two? Yeah, so then there's this is an extreme of eternalism, right? Yeah, or how we call that? Absolutism, right? Yeah. So so then you say, okay, but then there's no contact between the two. If you say no contact between the two, if those two exist, inherent or by their own characteristics, of course, then there's no relationship possible. But yeah, Prasangka says things do not exist inherent, things do not exist by their own characteristics, so things relate with each other, but are not in contact with each other, right? Because if they're in contact, then moment 2 is already there at moment 1. And that's not possible, right? Yeah. So that's kind of same with the continuity of consciousness. Moment 1 develops in moment 2, but there's no real contact between moment 1 and moment 2, right? Yeah. Otherwise, moment 1, 2 will be at the moment of moment 1. Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting debate to look at, and for the mind, it's quite interesting. Yeah. So it says if you say that cause produces the effect to contacting it, cause and effect will be not distinct, right? They have to be not completely distinct, but and then they share the same potency or the same aspect of development. Yeah. If they are indeed distinct, then cause will not differ from non-cause, right? So that means that if a cause exists by its own side, then it can never produce an effect, right? So then there's no difference between cause and no cause. Yeah, if a cause exists by its own side, or from its own side, then it cannot be a cause, right? So then they say, there's no difference between cause and non-cause. Yeah. Yet, apart from these two, there is no other conception of causal relationship. Yeah, so it's true, it's either they're in contact or they're not in contact. So that's kind of the question, right? Yeah, there's no third possibility, so to say. Yeah. But yeah, we have to here understand that in the Prasangika we say they're not inherent distinct, right? The distinct aspect. They are distinct in one way, they're different from each other. Yeah. Moment 1 is different from moment 2, right? But not inherently different, because if they're inherently different, they cannot relate to each other, right? Yeah. And then you come to, if you really think about it, continuity of consciousness, there's no contact between moment 1 and 2, but they're not completely inherently different. So that brings you to a very interesting aspect. There's a continuity, but there's no individual moments to be found, right? Yeah, because then it's inherent distinct. Yeah, that's not possible. So with consciousness, the moments of moment 1, 2, 3, 4, the various seconds of consciousness, there is no kasa. There's no inherent moments, and there's no inherent contact. Yeah, or there's no contact between the two, right? Yeah, so then you really come to the final conclusion that it's actually just an imputation, right? What you call the stream of consciousness is just an imputation based on various moments, and those moments you cannot find. Yeah, and moment 1, when moment 1 is present, moment 2 is not present yet. Yeah, so then you start to see, it's just an imputation, right? Yeah, same with the example of the river, as it's been explained here also in the commentary. And that some schools, they say, like a river in an ocean, right? You can distinct them, make a distinction or between them. Yeah. If they are completely distinct, there's no relation. Yeah. And we talked about before the river from the melting snow, and then goes into the lake, and you sit there just before the river becomes a lake. It's very interesting meditation. You know that you see that the river looks very solid out there, this water mass passing by, right? But what actually is the river, you cannot find, right? Is because the moment you pinpoint, that water mass is already one part of it, is already the lake. It's not a river anymore. Yeah. So if you think about that, then you see what you call the river is just based on a particular time and location. That's the river, nothing else. There's nothing else to be found. Same with our body, the cells changing seconds, split second by split second. So then you cannot find a moment existing in and by itself. And among those moments, there's no two moments, moment two already existing at time moment one. There's also not there. So then if you look at the body, is kind of the only way to what you find if you look for it is that's an imputation based on the collection of cells in a particular location and a particular time, nothing else. And that's yeah. So then you come to the conclusion, and that's helpful because if you see it's merely imputed by the mind, then it helps you to understand there's no independent self to be found, right? Yeah. So that's an aspect, of course, an effect, and then there's a few objections from other schools, and then we reject that. Yeah. In verse 170, it says, "Since your cause produces no effect." Yeah, if the cause exists inherent, for example, yeah, or is inherent distinct, there cannot be what you call effects. Yeah, if the cause is inherent distinct, then you cannot have an effect. Also, a cause devoid of an effect would not have a reason to be called cause. So if it doesn't have an effect, then it is not a cause anymore, right? Because what you call a cause should have an effect. Otherwise, you don't call it a cause. It has to be a cause of something. Yeah, its effect. Yeah. In that both cause and effect are like illusions for us. Yeah. So yeah, that same with time, past, present, and future. Same thing. You cannot find time, right? So there also you can see it's just a mere imputation. What you call present depends on what you call past, and what you call future, right? Yeah. So time is they say matter, space, and time are fundamental building blocks, but actually time is not that fundamental, right? Even Carlo agrees with that aspect. Yeah? So that time cannot be found. Yeah, it's imputed by the mind. Yeah. So here, same with cause and effect relationships, right? And yet, things of everyday world would still have existence. Yeah. So on the conventional level, things exist, but not in the way as being presented by the other schools, existing in a way that you can find it. Yeah. Then it says in verse 171, "Does your refutation refute by coming into contact with what's already been refuted?" Yeah. So that, as we just talked about, the cause and effect being in contact, that's not possible, right? Or does it do so without coming into contact? Yeah. So same question applies. Yeah, either there's contact or there's no contact. So you are not guilty of the same fault. Indeed, when you speak in such a manner, you undermine your own position, and your refutation will not have the power to refute what you are refuting. Yeah, so, meaning, if they say, things exist in an inherent or so here, according to the Swatantika school, they say things do not exist truly. Things are depending on the mind. Things do not exist by their own mode of abiding, as we call it, right? Yeah. So without depending on consciousness. Without, what do we say? The definition, right? The definition of true existence in the autonomy school is defined as without depending, or without depending of a non-deceptive awareness, right? Appearing to a non-deceptive awareness, existing by their own mode of being. Yeah, so that's kind of what we call the definition of true existence in the Svatantika school. Meaning, things seem to appear to a non-deceptive awareness, right? We have a kind of correct awareness to which things appear, but then they appear existing without that dependence, appear by their own mode of existence, or their own mode of being, their own unique or uncommon mode of being. That means that things exist without depending on consciousness, right? That's how things appear, but that's not a reality. So we know the mind-only school is very clear about this, but the Svatantika school doesn't go to that great extreme as the mind-only school, and saying everything is the nature of the mind, right? They don't go that far, in the Sutra system. So they say that things do not exist truly, but they exist by their own characteristics, in the sense that if you look for it, you'll be able to find something, right? Yeah. So next verse, since your objections rebound to your words as well, you are committing a logical fallacy. And so, with no sound logic, you deny the existence of all phenomena. Because when we say the eyes, so in contact or not, so the objects, of sense powers, or sense objects, so to say, So of course there's a mental factor contact, but the mental factor contact of your eye consciousness, seeing the color and the shape, is not that your eye is the color and the shape is against your eye, right? It's not the direct contact is not there, but still there's perception possible. So that's kind of an example what the Prasangika put forward, that although cause and effect are not in contact, but there's a relationship between the two, and a cause and effect relationship. Because also in Prasangika we know that color and shape causes the eye consciousness to arise, right? So the objects of the senses, they are the cause for that particular sense consciousness to arise, right? So all schools of Buddhist philosophy, with the exception of the mind-only school, accept that, right? So that means there's contact, but there's no contact of actually meeting the object, because that's not possible, because there's a cause and effect relationship. So that same applies to the debate what we just went over, right? The sublime ones will never agree with you, and with no position of your own, you are also simply abusing the norms of refutation. Next verse, then it says, the objection you have just raised, do your refutation refute what is to be refuted, right? So debating between, in either being inherent distinct or not distinct, right? Or coming in contact or not in contact. Without coming in contact or by contacting it. So those two aspects will certainly apply to someone who has this thesis. But I do not, I meaning the Prasangika school, do not have such a thesis of inherent existence. Then following the consequent school. So that's a few aspects of the cause and effect relationships, of how things relate with each other, and how you can debate. They're either in contact or not in contact, and that is then mainly referred to what we call those who uphold the view of inherent existence, right? Then you can have those two extremes, either in contact or not in contact. If they're not in contact, then there's no relationship possible. If they are in contact, then then the fact already exists at the time of the cause, right? So that's also not possible. So that's a kind of refutation of inherent existence in a different way, by dependent cause and effect. And we know in the three levels of dependent origination, that's the first level, right? The dependent origination of cause and effect. Then next verse, a few verses talked about the own system, Then just as the characteristics presented in the sun can be seen in its reflections, such as when there is an eclipse. Yet one cannot speak in terms of whether the sun touches its reflections. Yeah? Same thing, our mirror, our face in the mirror reflects, but it's not that we have to, maybe some people do that, so I'm not sure. And you have to put your face in the mirror. Yeah, but there's no need, right? Yeah. Nonetheless, things originate through dependence as mere conventions. Yeah, so the more you think also of your face in the mirror, actually the same thing. It appears very solid in the mirror, right? And you think that's me, or so, or you have this gaza, this fun park, and your friend is there, and you are there, and you see your friend in all mirrors, but you don't know what's your real friend or what's this reflection, you know. So there also it appears as existing in and by itself, right? But the first moment you look, it appears as existing in and by itself. It doesn't appear straight away. Oh, there's a mirror, and we have to think, you know, to. So that means our initial appearance is quite, conditioned by these imprints of inherent appearance, right? And then a particular adherence to inherent appearance. Yeah, so that's very strong. But yeah, next time you look in the mirror, you think about these things. Yeah, yeah. Instead of just looking in the mirror and doing other things. Yeah. Then it says next verse 175. Also, though unreal, a mirror image exists to help to make up one's face if you do that, or when you for the males sometimes for shaving. Yeah, in India we shaved quite a lot without a mirror, or we had these little mirrors, but they're so old or broken down that it doesn't make a difference if you look in it or not. Yeah. So then you just mostly feel, yeah. And sometimes you miss a bit, but in a monastery it doesn't matter. Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't matter. Some Tibetans, they have like this long hair here, because Tibetans don't have much hair, so they have this one hair coming out here or two, and they're very proud of that. So, yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. So anyway, it's very interesting. Yeah. So, but yeah. So in the early days, Gensler Michel Lobsang one of the teachers, my teacher also. Who taught without book on a table always, just from memory, straight from memory, So that's quite impressive, very impressive. Yeah. So, Gensler Michel Lobsang he didn't have a mirror. Of course, they don't have to shave because they don't have, like we Westerners have, many Tibetans. So he didn't have a mirror, and then we invited him to give teachings in Bangalore. We had to set up a center in Bangalore, and then we had he didn't go out much out of the monastery. So then we had a room, and there was a mirror in the room. And he looked in the mirror, he said, oh, he was already 18, what is it at that time, 83 or something. He said, oh, I'm getting old. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, but anyway, so here it says, it's the same thing. If you look in the mirror, the first thing that appears is that's me. Yeah, that isn't it? It's very, very solid. So you can see how our, perceptions are completely mistaken, right? Constantly. And then when we look around and we see people or we see things, or it's constantly mistaken. And we just take it for granted, it's all reality. Yeah. So that's important to train in, to see everything as an illusion from the point of view, not that your body is an illusion, your mind is an illusion, and the world is an illusion. No, the way it appears, that's the illusion. Yeah, that it appears inherent, that's the illusion part. Because there is a body, there is a mind, there's a house, there's a tree. That's not illusion, right? But the way those objects appear to us, that's illusion. Yeah? Or sound, it's also sound. Sometimes sound appears very solid, or a song, or things like that. Yeah, I always get very sad when I hear songs from the 80s or 90s. Sometimes you hear, not in the forest, but when you go in the city, sometimes. Yeah. We went. we went for shopping, jewels, you know, kind of, what is it? The crystal shop, you know. In London, we had once a while we filled statues and things like that, so we went to buy crystals. And somehow, when we went to the crystal shop, many people came to the shop. So the lady once said, "Oh, when you come here, so many people, other people come as well." This is very interesting. So the lady also had the radio. You know, you have different radio channels. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So she was. I made a comment and said, "Oh, it is because we're more or less same age. You know, I think." So I said, "It's from yeah, this and this time." Yeah, as I said, it's a very good channel because only music on this and this time. But then I listen and you think, oh wow, that's like in the late 80s, you know, and time is gone, and they just sing about, you know, what you sing about, right? And, you know, the lyrics are not that profound. So most of them. So then thinking, man, sometimes that's very good meditation. Then you see, you listen to the music and think, you know, the 80s is how many years? 40 years gone or something, yeah, or something like that. Yeah, and still the same music, same kind of, you know, without essence, you know. See? But also it appears very solid, you know, same as your face in a mirror. Yeah. But sound is just, if you listen to sound, it's not that solid, right? It's just, yeah, it's changing. You know, it's just a continuity of vibrations. Is what it is. It's not really anything solid at all. You know, so then disappears, comes, disappears. Yeah. So same with your face in the mirror, right? And your own body and your own mind. Exactly the same. So just in the same way, understand that through reasoning, yeah, the reason of identical with or different from, yeah, that reason, or the reason of dependent origination, yeah, which has the power to and cleanse the face of wisdom. Yeah, so one can realize the conclusion, even in no objective, with no objective evidence, meaning there's no objective aspects of inherent existence, right? Yeah. If our proof, inferring the thesis, possessed real existence, and if this thesis, being proven, had real existence as well, or inherently real, then the argument about contact and so on would apply. Yeah, if things appear inherent, then you can argue that, okay, if things appear inherent, then is the cause in the contact with the effect or not? Yeah, that's the question. If cause is in contact, if they both exist inherent, then there should be either of those two extremes, right? So if they're in contact, then it cannot be cause and effect related, because then the result is already there at the time of the cause, right? And if they inherently different, then also there's no possibility of cause and effect because they're completely distinct. There's no correlation possible. And so that's that whole debate of cause and effect existing inherent, and you have this argument, right? Of they either are in contact or not in contact. That's the debate, and either of those two possibilities will, you know, whatever you answer, will be refuted again, because you say, okay, they're in contact. Then you say, but then cause is already there at the time of the effect. Oh, sorry, the effect is already there at the time of the cause. So there's no cause and effect relationship. If they inherently distinct, then there's no relationship possible between the two, right? Yeah, so that's the debate, right? If people, what you could put forward as a debate if things exist inherent. Then the next verse. It is easy for us to make others realize that all things lack real existence, but you cannot easily make others apprehend intrinsic existence. Yeah, that's not possible. You can let other people know there's no inherent existence, but you cannot let people know there's inherent existence, because inherent existence just doesn't exist. Yeah, if something that does not exist, you can never comprehend or realize. It can appear, and you can grasp at it or hold on to it, but you can never prove it because it doesn't exist. You can never prove something that does not exist, right? Yeah. So why, what is it? Ensnare? How do you pronounce that? Ensnared the world in a web for logic. So logic is so important, right? Sorry. I have to think straight away out from my teachers. Tibetans, you know, when they burp or things like that, it's just so normal. But in the West, you have to say sorry. Yeah. No, sorry. It's a long day for us because we're starting at 8:30 in the morning, and then we finish. I just finished because some additional teachings happening, so finish by 7:30 or something like that. Our time, right? Yeah. So yeah. So anyway, it just came up. Yeah. So I just had something to eat just before I started. Anyway. I don't have to excuse myself. No? Yeah. So you have to have a correct form of logic or reasoning. That's what it says here. You know. So what is that correct logic or reasoning? You have a syllogism and a correct example. Yeah. So then Lama Tsongkhapa also gives that as a commentary. That you say, for example, the subject, the sprout is empty of inherent existence because it is dependent originated, like a reflection in a mirror. Yeah. So that means that, like a reflection in the mirror, helps the person to realize that the sprout is also empty of inherent existence. Yeah, yeah. So because it depends on cause and condition, same. Your reflection in a mirror depends on the mirror, depends on your face, the relationship between the two, right? So we always, the examples you use, like the reflection in the mirror, is much easier to realize. It does not exist from its own side than the body, for example. Yeah, so you can also say the body is empty of inherent existence, like the reflection in a mirror, right? Yeah, or you can say, when we talked about previously, the body does not exist inherent because it's merely imputed, like uncompounded space. Yeah, so you can see uncompounded space is related with the sign or the correct reasoning of being merely imputed. So it's easier to see that space is merely imputed than it is to see that your body, for example, is merely imputed. Yeah, we talked about it before, I think. So that's why the example is very important in the syllogism to put forward a reasoning. Yeah, so in this case, the sprout, the subject is sprout, yeah, that has a particular quality. In this case, empty of inherent existence, and you prove that with a reasoning or a sign, and you say, because it's a nature of dependent origination, like the reflection in a mirror. So the example helps us to understand dependent origination and to prove that things do not exist from its own side, or inherent, in this case, the sprout. Yeah, so yeah, for those who studied debate before, you know, there's the three modes of ascertainment. Yeah, you have to realize that the sprout is in the nature of dependent origination, and you have to realize the pervasion and the counter pervasion, right? So you have to realize certain aspects in order to put forward a correct sign that produces inference. Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of yeah. For those who study debates, they know what I'm talking about. Yeah, but if you haven't studied debates before, then you can understand that if you sit down and meditate, you need a reasoning, and if you use an example, it can be very helpful. Yeah, so for example, the body is empty of inherent existence because merely imputed, like space. Yeah, like uncompounded space. Uncompounded space is also imputed. When you say free of obstruction, there's nothing. There's just free of obstruction is just a concept, right? Yeah, it's just a kind of designation or imputation. But the body is exactly the same. It's just an imputation. Yeah, because what we call the body is just based on a particular time and location, that all the cells are organized in a particular way, and then we say body, right? Yeah. So that means that if you say like space, that helps us to understand that also the body is merely imputed. Yeah. So that example we use can be very helpful in proving this particular aspect, in this reasoning of when you meditate on emptiness, the self of a person or self of phenomena. Then you use the sequence, right? You have a subject. You have the subject has a quality, be empty of inherent existence, And there's a reason, because it's nature of dependent origination, for example, or you cannot find it one and different from. Yeah, and then you use an example. Yeah, so that's the way we actually do our analytical meditations of the whole Lam-Rim. Is exactly the same thing. You use correct reasonings, and if you have an example with that, then it can be very helpful, because that example helps us to understand the reasoning, yeah, and the sign we put forward. Yeah? In this case, here dependent origination. Yeah, so like a reflection in the mirror, because we know our reflection in the mirror. To see that a reflection in the mirror is a nature of dependent origination is much easier to recognize than to see that the body is a nature of dependent origination, for example, or the plant, or the building, or the house. Yeah, so that's kind of what we use, Then some next verse, the verse 178. Then the next section is about the different enumerations about emptiness, right? So we can do one more verse, 178. Understand other remaining refutations from what has been said above, so we hear other refutations that are not really presented in this text, but rebut to others, respond to our argument about whether a cause contacts its effect. Yes, that's the main debate in this section of these few verses, right? And recognize also how ours is not an instant or flawed refutation. Yeah, so that's why it's very important to study logic and reasoning, right? You see that in order to to analyze texts, in order to understand various aspects, in order to have strong analytical meditation in the Lam-Rim, it's very important to understand the logic and reasoning. Yeah, the more you understand logic and reasoning, the more you're capable of producing very powerful analytical meditations, right? If you just sit and meditate and think, yeah, okay, yes, okay, there is no I, it's been said, so there's no I. Because there's no I, because everything is dependent, and that's one way to meditate. But you can also sit and okay, what's object of refutation? This, okay. Does it exist the way it appears? Is it in nature of dependence? It is nature of dependence, like the face in a mirror, So then you analyze. Then it's kind of much more clear cut or straight through. That eventually also, when you engage in analytical meditation, sometimes it's good to just analyze quietly, but sometimes also good to be fast and sharp and quick. That's also sometimes very helpful. And then when you come to the conclusion and you refute the object refutation, then you stay on that. Then you do a kind of a single-pointed concentration, right? In brief, understand all other refutations from what we have already outlined before. So that's one section in the text. I thought that's not for today. Then next week we go to the various divisions of emptiness. That's various kind of enumerations of emptiness. Okay, so then we stop here, and then if there's any questions, then we can do a few, or all of them, or if there's no questions, then we don't have to do anything. Oh yeah, you have to.
So if you've got any questions, you can message Geshe Tenzin Namdak in the chat, or put your hand up now. You can ask. People are being shy today, Geshe.
Say again?
Haven't got anything yet.
Oh, Printing was just sitting next to me.
Oh, here we go. Terrell always has a question. Thank you, Terrell.
Yeah.
Hello again, Lama, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you so much again for the teachings again, Lama. I have many questions.
Many?
But let's just try one.
Yeah.
To go through my notes. This is just back when you were commenting on, I think in the context of verse 6.170, but about...
6.170. That sounds very sophisticated, yeah.
It's not actually, but it's just in that context, I think you're talking about this kind of like the aspect of time being very
Ale, yeah, time.
And I think I heard you said, a Buddhist said that matter, space, and time are fundamental building blocks. I guess it's like in standard physics maybe. But you said Carlo Rovelli would also agree that time is not one of the fundamental building blocks. I think in agreement with like the arguments that you were making. Did I hear that correctly?
I mean,
And
if you,
also, would
yeah.
you not say, matter and space are not fundamental building blocks
From Buddhist
with the
perspective,
same logic, right? So that's where I was a little.
Ale, yeah, I mean, Carlo Rovelli also, if you see his interpretation of time, is very similar to the Buddhist interpretation of being merely imputed, right? Yeah, so it's just kind of a property of reality, but it's not really something substantial like matter. Also matter is not that substantial as we think it is, right? But at least matter we can, and time we can measure, but time is not really findable. Also according to Carlo Rovelli, right? Yeah. So yeah, if you for example look at consciousness now, consciousness studies, then there's a paradigm shift with big names like um, uh, Gaza, Gaza. What's it called? No. David Charms, for example, and others, right? They start to think maybe we should see consciousness as something fundamental, but not fundamental like matter, but to take it separate. Because at the moment we always have studied consciousness in relation with the brain or relation with behavior, but never really separate, right? So in that context, we can say fundamental building block. Yeah. So the same for time. From that point of view, of course, time is different from matter and space, right? So that's true, but not really that is something solid to be found. Yeah.
But in that same reflection, matter is
True, same thing. Yeah, because Carlo Rovelli. Yeah, yeah. Because when we talked about consciousness, then Carlo Rovelli said, yeah, but matter also is not that solid as we think it is. Yeah, so it's very similar to consciousness, but not the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll then come back with my other questions later.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Tashidle.
I just wanted to understand stanza 171 and 172.
171, 72.
Yes. In 171 is saying that if you are refuting inherent existence, that's the consciousness that is refuting the inherent existence does not come
Mm.
into contact with inherent existence and physically go into the real. And that's why the cause and the effect do not come into contact. So this is Prasanga's point of view. And 172, I've lost it. 172 is the early one or this one?
Ale, that's all. The other two verses are the rejections, right, of the objections. So that's kind of from the point of view of prasangika, right? That like an eye perceives an object without a direct contact, right? Yeah, but there's a cause and effect relationship there. Yeah, so here you're debating upholders of inherent existence. Yeah, so that is the autonomy school, and for example, in the Sautantrika school, or the Sutra school, and they also accept that the object of the eye consciousness is a cause and effect relationship with eye consciousness, and they also accept there's contact, but not in contact that there's actually a physical contact between the object and the eye itself. Yeah, so that's to prove that to them that although things do not exist inherent, there's still a cause and effect relationship possible. Yeah, so that's just that example is being used, right? Because the main debate is if things exist inherent, then there should be either contact or they should be distinct from each other, right? So if there's contact, then there's no cause and effect possible because the effect already exists at the time of the cause, and they are inherent distinct. Then there's no correlation possible between the two. So then also you cannot talk about cause and effect because there's no effect of this cause because those two things exist independently of each other, right? Yeah. So then whatever of those two possibilities you follow, you cannot find the cause, neither the effect. Yeah. Yeah?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you clarify what we'd mean by contact in terms of moments?
Moments. So, if moment 1 exists inherent, and moment 2 exists inherent, you can have the same kind of logical reasoning. Okay, if moment 2 then exists or is in actually direct contact with moment 1, right, then you cannot have a cause and effect, because then moment 1 exists at a time. Sorry, moment 2 exists at the time of moment 1, so then they exist at the same time, and then there's no cause and effect. If you have moment 1 and moment 2 exist inherent, distinct from each other, without contact, then also you cannot have moment 1 and 2, because moment 2 cannot relate to moment 1, because they're two distinct, inherent, independent entities. Yeah, so that's kind of the same logic applies, right? With moments of consciousness or moments in matter, for that regard, that's there's either contact or no contact if they exist inherent, right? And if there's contact, there's no cause and effect, because then moment 2 exists at the time of moment 1. Otherwise, the never contact will not be possible, right? Yeah. And then if they're distinct, if there's no contact, and that means they're independent of each other, then also there, moment 2 cannot be moment 2, because we only say moment 2 because it's independence of moment 1. Yeah, if there's no dependence, then moment 2 stands all by itself and cannot be called moment 2, because there's no relationship between moment 1 with moment 1. Yeah. Yep.
And how does this relate to disintegratedness?
Yeah, disintegratedness. How does it relate? Yeah. I mean, disintegratedness is just a momentary changing nature of something that has ceased to exist. Yeah, and yeah, that's for us. It's still disintegration is not an easy topic, because we're not talking about matter. You know, in the certain aspect of disintegratedness, you talk about non-locality, right? Information and non-locality, which is a quite controversial aspect in science. Yeah, that many people they try to refute information theories in non-locality, because you cannot, really prove. Yeah, that you cannot really prove non-locality. You can only examine non-locality in relation with local aspects of information. Yeah, so that's why you see information theories in neuroscience, right? Integrated information theory by Tononi, for example. Then they still explain it from the point of view of a physical aspect of the brain, yeah, of physical correlations in the brain. So only in quantum mechanics there are, like David Bohm and others, where you talk about information theory in non-locality. Yeah, so and that's why David Bohm talked about the implicate order, for example, or hidden variables. It has been refuted even by Carlo Rovelli. Yeah, that those aspects. But yeah, still, if you take Buddhism into account, and in particular integratedness, that whatever action we engage in or whatever perception we had, that is past tense. Yeah, but it's not gone. That information is not gone. That information is present, and that remains always present. Yeah. But it's not form. It's not matter. That's the difficult thing. And then it's a non-associated compositional factor. Yeah, it's kind of this hidden variable. Yeah. Same. Aaron Schrödinger also talks about this information in non-locality. Yeah, it is very interesting. And as many other scientists who have their opinion in a similar way, that there is an information that is not local, but that information has an influence on our perceptions or on our physical and the physical world. Yeah, that is underlying, or yeah, I use David Bohm's term in an implicate order, basically. Yeah, it's kind of an underlying reality. We cannot empirically prove, but it has its correlation with the things we can empirically measure. So that's kind of a little bit different thing. Same with consciousness, mind-brain problem. Yeah, same thing. If you accept that consciousness is non-local, but it has a correlation with the physical brain, then you have something very interesting, because you have a correlation with non-local information and local information. Yeah, if you take Tononi's integrated information theory into account with the aspect of mind-brain being two different things. Yeah, not that the mind is an emergent property of the brain, but the mind is consciousness a fundamental building block, so to say. Then things will become very interesting, because then you have a correlation between non-local information and local information, right? And that's probably happening because we have a brain, a physical brain, and that has information, and we have consciousness that is not physical and that has information, and there's a correlation between the two. Yeah, so then things become very interesting. Yeah, but anyway, so this integratedness, what was the question again?
How does it relate to this?
Yeah, so that's how it relates. Yeah, more or less, not completely, but disintegratedness means that every moment also does not exist by its own, from its own side or inherent, right? Yeah, so, and that's why it has a correlation with the future. Yeah, so the same with time, it has a correlation. You know, that information can be remembered. Yeah, so if that information exists inherent, then there would not be possible. It would be inherent distinct, and it would not be possible to remember things, right? So same, how memory works. The theory we have of information theory of disintegratedness is very similar to how memory works, right? We remember certain things. That means we access that information. Yeah? So sometimes we don't remember that information is there, but we cannot access that information, right? Yeah, and then when you, for example, you lost your keys or your car keys or your phone. Yeah, people freak out these days when their phone is not there for a few minutes or something like that. So then you think, oh, where did I put my phone? Oh, you don't know, you don't remember. Then the best thing to do is just sit down, do your prayers, and things will come to mind. Yeah, it's very interesting, because when the mind calms down a bit, then we start thinking, oh yeah, there, I left it there. Yeah. So then we can access that information. So the information was always been present, even when you didn't remember it. Yeah, but yeah, so the same thing, because that information that carries on over time in this aspect of disintegratedness and doesn't exist in and by itself, and that's exactly why we can remember it, because we can relate to it in the sense of this dependence between this information and the working of our mind to be able to remember, right? Yeah.
Would contact between day and night be like saying day and night exist at the same time?
Yeah, same thing, right? Day and night, same as time. What is the day and what's the night? They're not really in contact with each other, right? Inherently, and they're not inherently distinct either. Because what you call the day and what you call the night is also merely imputed. Because if you say, okay, 6 o'clock is, from 6 o'clock onward is evening, and let's say 10, maybe they say, from 10 onwards is night, or 12, I don't know, whatever you put. But actually 12 o'clock also you cannot find, right? Okay, there's 11 hours and 66 seconds. So sorry, 66. Yeah, I don't know where that came from. 59, 59 points, and then you can go an infinite. 0.9999999999999999999. You cannot really, you cannot really find that if you split the second. Yeah, what is a second? You cannot find a second, right? You cannot find a minute, you cannot find an hour, because if you split it the seconds, there's no end. They go in infinite kind of subdivisions. Yeah, we don't have partless particles. We don't have partless time or partless moments of consciousness. Everything can always be subdivided. So that means time is completely imputed. Yeah, so same with day and night is completely imputed. It just depends how you define it. But you cannot find it. You can find a day, you can find night, evening, morning, afternoon, things like that, right? Because it's all imputed based on how you define an hour, and how you define a minute, how you define a second, and then based on that you say, okay, from this time to this time, that's what we consider as the day, or that's what we consider evening, or yeah, things like that. Yeah.
Okay, B has a question.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Are you okay to go on?
Yeah. To Goa?
Since 8:30? To keep going.
Yeah, a few more minutes. Then I fall asleep.
Okay. Now, it is said, Buddha said that the effect of karma increases over time when
Yeah.
the seed grows into a big tree. But this intergratedness itself, does it weaken over time?
Weekend.
Kind of like I throw a stone into a pond,
Yeah.
and it creates ripple.
Yeah.
And then as I get further away from the central point, the ripples get bigger.
Yeah.
And eventually it fizzles out.
Yeah.
So so the question here,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the disintegratedness of actions, or like the disintegratedness of the seed.
So the if you throw the stone or stones, then there are conditions that makes it stop over time, right? Yeah. So that's different.
Maybe
Yeah.
there may not be condition, maybe just one sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's gravity and there's stream of water and you know the I would say the how I call it attraction of yeah. Anyway, that's yeah. So what was the question?
About how it fades out over time.
Yeah.
But you said depending
Yeah,
on
but you talked about karma being increasing, right? So if you study entropy, for example, they know that things become more complex over time. I don't say it's exactly probably the same as karma, but it is a similarity. Yeah. So if you have a new quantum state or an action, then if you study entropy of that action, things become more complex. Yeah, over time. So that I don't know if it's exactly the same, but that could be a similarity to understand that karma has the potential to increase, right? Yeah, but that
Karma
as
increase, are we talking about the disintegratedness increase?
yeah, I mean disintegratedness. For example, if you have one disintegratedness develops in another, so then there can be increase of a potential, right? We're talking about a potential, same as a seed.
So the seed, a mouthful word to say.
Yeah.
So the disintegratedness itself increase over time.
Yeah, because if you have a seed that grows into a tree, an apple tree, and it produces many apples, right? That's how we mostly use it as an example of the point of karma increasing. That
Seems here somewhere the place we make a distinction between the disintegratedness itself and the effect of the karma, which is the effect of, well, actually I don't know what that means.
the effect comes into being when this disintegratedness of a particular potential meets certain conditions, and then it develops in an effect, right? So the moment it transforms into an effect, then that information of being a cause is ripening in an effect, right? And then it doesn't have, because it's developing into an effect, then the potential is being kind of taken away, right?
Okay,
That information.
let's go deep.
Yeah. Sorry.
Maybe that's easier for my mind my brain to imagine. So a physical seed will grow into a sprout.
Yeah. And
But the
three.
sprout, the initial seed grew from the seed. It's just tiny, just small.
Yeah, very tiny.
Now, as a sprout continue to grow then into a big tree, can we still attribute the cause of the sprout growing into a big tree from the seed? Or is now we require additional factors
Yeah, I mean,
to allow the sprout to grow into
yeah,
a tree?
if you think a bit more about it, that seed carries a lot of information, right? That carries information of the various colors of the potentials of the future of the different leaves and fruit and those kind of things. So there is already quite some information at the time of the seed, but then when it grows, then also the information most likely will increase, right? because there's different directions of the tree, and there's more cells, right, being developed, and each cell has its own kind of information being developed. So there also you probably can argue that information becomes more complex, right, and increases. Yeah, so it's probably the same with karma. That, I mean, this is not easy to be understood, right, because we talk about an very hidden phenomena and an aspect of what we call non-associated compositional factors. But if we have to use reasons and logic and to try to find out the best way we can approach it and understand it, then I think that makes sense. If you see as a seed depends on various conditions, grows into a tree, and so then also each that seed initially has, I don't know how many monicles it has, but then it grows into a tree and has many more, and each of those monicles of the tree also has various types of information, so it becomes just much more complex over time, right? So karma is probably very similar to that. Yeah, that if you think about this potential of increase, right, that point we put as a certainty of aspect of karma next to the first one, right, certainty. Yeah.
Another thought I have about this interconnectedness of action, it doesn't make sense to say that we deposit upon the mere eye. Because the mere eye is an imputation
Yeah.
upon a basis.
But the seed is also.
So it would make more sense to me to say mere eye is imputed upon the continuum of the basic interconnectedness of a particular person's actions, the way the mere eye is imputed upon a particular continuum of 5 aggregates of a person.
A bit of a mouthful there, isn't it?
Yeah, so merely imputed, of course. What is the person is all this information of karma, of aggregates, right? And that mere collection we label. No?
Yeah, so mere eye is an imputation upon the indistinguishableness of action.
Yeah, because
of action. It's not where the mere it's not deposited upon the mere eye, but it's the basis. It's one of the bases of imputation of mere eye.
yeah,
This is my thought.
the mere collection of the moments, or the mere collection of the disintegratedness of the mere aggregates, right? That's upon which we impute the person, no?
Yeah, so upon which
Yeah.
we impute
Yeah.
the eye.
Yeah.
So it's not the other way around. It's
No, that's the way. That's the way. Yeah.
so I just
You find a way. B. Congratulations. You find a way. Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Cheers. Last one. Yeah. Yeah. One more. Then Terrell. Yes. One more question.
So, yeah, thank you.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is a follow-up to B's.
Oh no.
No. This is mostly confirmation, I think. Me and I are a study group to get back
Okay.
to something.
Okay.
So, what I think I heard you say in the context of answering B, for me, answers a fundamental point of challenge and disagreement. How does the disintegratedness in the process of studying with you lead to both the rule of karma where you have the increase and at the same time lead to a ripening of karma, because that should be a kind of ending, right? So
Alle ending. Yeah.
talking about, right, the potential, when the potential, say, meets, if we think of disintegratedness as a potential, right, there's certain parameters in order to be correct, conceive of that. So when that potential meets the correct conditions, then it transforms, say, into a result like a ripening. So that has a kind of determination, because that potential falls from being potential into something that ripening. So at the same time, you get the karma, you reject the karma, etc. It ripens, and then it doesn't keep ripening, not that same thought. But on the other hand, there's still this other potential flow that may be available. These other seeds that can lead to other trees, and that's where you also at the same time get the karma increases, right? Unless you purify.
Yeah.
Is that correct? In alignment with what you said, did I understand that?
More or less, I think. Yeah. But also.
I'll take more and hope for understanding less.
So, but also when things meet cause and conditions and ripen into an effect, right? It's not that all the information is there and it's gone in their effect, because there will still, yeah, because there still be kind of, for example, you practice morality, right? And that morality causes you to have a presumed rebirth. The moment you have the presumed rebirth, that throwing karma aspect, yes, that's finished. But there's still completion karma or action according to the cause, so you can still act again in your next life. Oh, I want to practice morality. That's also part of that same information, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. And then good night, sweet dreams about disintegratedness. Yeah. And then yeah, see you. So yeah, next week, same time, right? Same time, same channel, same room, probably still. Yeah. Okay. See you next week. Thank you so much. Huh? Yeah, we dedication. cut off straight. No, we do dedication, of course. So thank you. Yeah, being in the nature of disintegratedness, your consciousness, your body, it doesn't exist from its own side. And there's no inherent cause of dedication and no inherent effect of the result of the dedication. And that's exactly why there's a correlation between the two, right? And that's exactly why um, the effects will come of having done the dedication. Yeah, so think about that. Well, dedicate, yeah, and then dedicate together.
Taki jine sape gewa di tendan roa kana gampenta. Gepa jesun no sandrapai tempe nyimpo rindu saje sho. May the glorious Guru's lives be long and stable, and may all beings equaling the extent of space have happiness. May I and others without exception accumulate merit and purify negativities, and may we be blessed to quickly attain Buddhahood. Chanchu Senchu Rinpoche Magye Panange Gyuchi Gyepa Nyampa Mepaya Gonne Konde Bawa Sho Toni Tawa Rinpoche Magye Panange Gyuchi Gyepa Nyampa Mepaya Gonne Konde Bawa Sho.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye. Good night. Yeah, can leave now.